Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I am Christina. I am a mom of 5 children, ages 1 through 13. This video is somewhat big news for me and for my family, and maybe for some of you, maybe not big news for some of you. However, it's definitely something I felt that I wanted to share. As you may or may not know, we are a first-year homeschool family. I don't love labels, but I guess we would fall under like COVID homeschoolers, because although I was always somewhat intrigued by the idea of homeschooling, and it's something that my husband and I had talked about here and there, we were not homeschooling before COVID. So COVID is definitely what led us to start homeschooling. And my husband was actually more all in than I was. I was more of the mindset of like, let's try virtual learning and see how it goes and be open to the idea of pulling them out and just homeschooling. And he was like, no, let's just go for it. And so he tends to be the more radical, decisive one, and I tend to be the more like, I mull over things and I weigh the pros and cons and all of those things. So we actually do find a good balance between the two of us. So I think we balance each other out in that regard. But I will say 100% think he was right. We made definitely the right decision. This has been probably my favorite season of life, homeschooling all of the kids and seeing them all truly thrive homeschooling. So although I know COVID has been a tough season for so many, I really feel very thankful and very blessed for this season, while still grieving with those who have had serious loss in one way or another in this season. Without stalling any further, I found out not too long ago that I would have to go back in person to work today. So if you're watching this video on the day that I release it, then I am currently at work. So pray for me, think of me. I did not think I was going to have to go back in person to teach. I have been teaching virtually all year. So if you've been following me, you know, like I have been teaching virtually this entire time. So I have been working full time this entire time. However, I've been working from home, which is a lot to juggle, but it was really wonderful because on my breaks, I could homeschool the kids, and obviously I could have my lunch with them. And, you know, I was just in the other room most of the day. So finding out that I had to go back, I was not prepared for that. I figured I would have to go back in September, but I figured I had a lot more time to have to worry about that. So it did come as a shock. My husband and I definitely talked and prayed and went through all of the ifs and discussed whether or not we thought that I should go back. And we toyed around with the idea of like just taking a leave of absence through the rest of the year and then figuring it out. And we decided that for right now, the best choice was to just go back and finish out the year, as hard as a decision as that was. Now, let me just say, I am super thankful for my job. In the beginning of the year, when many teachers were getting laid off, was very afraid that I was going to lose my job based on simply seniority alone. It took me about 10 years to go to school to become a teacher because it was my second career. I also do hair. I only do it one night a week, if that, at this point. But teaching was my second career. And the interesting thing is I went to school to become a teacher when I was pregnant with my first son, who is now 13, when all of a sudden I decided I want to see him as much as possible, right? So like to do hair, I'd have to work nights and weekends in order for that to be like a lucrative career. And as much as I loved it, and I probably would have just continued in it if I was not going to have children, I did not want to feel like I never saw my child. So I actually went back to school for teaching when I was pregnant with my first son. It was a long road to become a teacher. It was my dream as a child to become a teacher. I always wanted to be a teacher, but school actually became a very negative place for me in middle school and high school, and I hated school. We moved, so I didn't know anyone. Where we moved was very different from where I grew up. I grew up in like a very urban, diverse area, and I moved to an area that was not that way at all, and it was complete culture shock for me. So it was not a positive experience. I hated school. I will share this probably for the first time that I dropped out of high school. I lost my stepfather to cancer, and it was very hard for my mom because he was a wonderful, wonderful man. He was wonderful. And so it was beyond traumatic. I was 16, maybe almost 17 years old. I already hated school. I was already very unhappy. And really my whole world just came crashing down. And I believe it was the day after my stepfather died that I officially unenrolled from public school. And so long story short, like I got my GED and I went to college early and I went to hair school and I was doing just fine. But when I became pregnant, I decided that I wanted to go back to school to become a teacher. So it was a long road and a ton of money. Like talk about student loan debt, like a ton of money to become a teacher. So it's not an easy thing to realize like, oh wow, like I like being a stay-at-home mom and I like homeschooling my kids. It's kind of mind-blowing. It just never was on my radar before. Like as much as I loved being with my kids, it was just never really a possibility or never really anything that I could consider. Like another thing that I haven't shared on my channel before is that it sounds so weird to even say out loud, but my husband is not the first time I was married, and I am not ready to share that testimony yet because I just don't know if I ever will. But he is amazing and he is the love of my life and I wouldn't change it for anything, but before it was definitely not even on my radar to be a stay-at-home mom. It just wasn't an option. So I was always working and going to school and taking care of the kids and doing all of the things. And it just wasn't on my radar. So it was more like I was fighting for just the opportunity to have the same schedule as my children so I could be with them as much as possible. So all of that to say, I worked really hard to become a teacher. I love kids. Like I just do. I teach teenagers. If you you missed it or you haven't been around or you haven't watched any of my videos where I talk about it, like I teach 10th grade English and I love teens. I have a 13-year-old now and I am fully enjoying having a teenager. I just think teens are so full of life and just great. And they come with their own set of struggles just like we all do. But I guess the other piece of it, and I feel like I'm all over the place with this video, so I'm probably processing while I'm talking to you guys. So I apologize for that, but I don't really know how else to share this because it still feels surreal to me that I am going back. So I'll share a couple more things and then I'll try to wrap this up. But when schools shut down because of COVID, I was still on maternity leave. So it has been over a year since I've physically taught in person. So, I mean, it's not that much longer than like other teachers that have been teaching virtually the whole time since the COVID shutdown. But I was out on maternity leave. And so the other piece is before the shutdown, while I was out on maternity leave, my school was going through and is still going through major construction and my entire building was transferred to the new building, the new build, and I hear it's beautiful. I still have not seen it in person. By the time you're watching this video, I will be in it, but as I am filming right now, I still have not seen it. So there are a lot of layers about going back that are all part of probably my anxiety, I would say. I don't like to throw that word around. I feel like that word is like super overused these days, which is a whole nother thing, but all kind of contributing to feelings of anxiousness about going back and about leaving my kids and leaving this sort of season. I have enjoyed our bubble. I have enjoyed just our close time together, the slowing down of life and just being together. Like, it has come with its challenges, and I feel like I have refereed more arguments and disagreements and attitudes and all of that than I ever have. But at the same time, I have also had the most enjoyable moments I think that we've ever had as well. So it is definitely a major life change. It is a new season that I am still processing. And so it's a very weird thing to feel like things are shifting again. And so I'm wearing this shirt not only because I love it, but also because there's a song that I love that you may have heard or not, and it's called Waymaker. And basically the song repeats Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. And so as we make this decision for me to go back to work, I'm just trusting God with it, because it doesn't seem like it makes a ton of sense, because my heart is to be with my kids 24/7. And that's not to say like I don't love my students and I don't love my job and I'm not like super thankful to have a job and I love teaching and all of those things, but like my heart is with my kids. So it is a weird thing to not quite understand why it doesn't seem like it lines up for me to be with them and to be teaching them. However, that brings me to the main point, I guess, of this video, which is, what do we do about homeschooling? And so, to be honest, that was not a hard decision at all. We will continue to homeschool. And so it will look a bit different, but in some ways we've kind of been prepared for this more than I realized. Like, again, I was working full time still, although I was here, and it will be very different. Like, they did a lot of things on their own, a lot of things my husband would oversee, and we will just be shifting the time that I give them direct instruction and do, you know, units with them and things, and they will become, or at least my older kids will become, a little bit more independent, but not a ton. So we are going to be shifting our schedule. We will do our main instruction when I get out of work, and they will work on things independently during the day, and they'll get everything else done. So they'll go have fun, and they'll do things around the house, and they'll do their reading and their math and their projects and the things that they don't need me to do with them. And we will do our main instruction when I get out of work, and then we'll have dinner and we'll see how it goes. So I will keep you guys posted, and I will keep you updated, and I will be able to definitely offer like a whole other perspective now, from being a mom who is working but is home to a mom that is working full-time outside the home and homeschooling. So this is something I figured was probably going to happen next year anyway, as we don't really feel like it is the time for me to not work entirely. Luckily, my husband does have a job that is really flexible. So that has been really helpful, because I would not be able to be home full-time teaching without him, without his help, because I mean, I'm teaching for hours while my 1 through 13-year-old are like, what, taking care of themselves? Like, I don't know. I'm sure some people would think that it's totally fine, but it definitely wasn't totally fine for us. So we're very thankful that his job is flexible and he can work as much or as little as possible. However, it's just not a situation where he can jump in like that and, health insurance and all of those things. So it's a lot to consider, and he is more than willing to do like whatever it takes. However, I don't see it as the season for right now. Luckily, one of the perks of being a teacher is not having to work in the summer. So there is only a couple months of school left, a few months of school left. So this will kind of get to be like our trial. Like, we'll see what it's like for me to work full time and still homeschooling the kids. So we are all dedicated to homeschooling. Every single person in the family loves homeschooling and continues to want to do what it takes to make it work. So I think that's a big piece of it, is everyone being dedicated to making it work. And the rest of it, we'll just kind of figure it out as we go. So that kind of answers the question, like, what will we do now? We still will homeschool. That was one of the first things that friends and family asked when we told them I was going back, like, what are you going to do about homeschooling? And we pretty promptly said, we are still going to homeschool. And I know that there are many families that do this. I definitely would like to connect with some families that do this, because I know it is different than a stay-at-home mom who's homeschooling all day, or homeschooling throughout the day. And so if you do this, or you know someone who does, like, please let me know in the comments. I would love to connect and just, pick your brain a little bit maybe, or hear what works and what doesn't work, and what your experience has been, and all of those good things. So if you are someone who is considering homeschooling, but it doesn't seem like you have a situation that would work for homeschooling, I just hope that this encourages you. We have made some huge sacrifices in order to homeschool, even before me going back. So, I mean, we could have sent our kids in person, like they did have the option to go in person. My 1 and 2-year-old, it would have been a little bit different, I'm sure, between like family and my husband's flexible schedule. He could have worked a lot more, and I continue to work full time, and obviously we would have made more money. We went down to having one vehicle, so we currently have one vehicle. So we are making sacrifices already in order to homeschool, because it is something that every day we love more and more. And it does come with its own challenges, but I feel like all of the benefits have outweighed any of the negatives. So hopefully this encourages you if you are considering homeschooling, or if you are homeschooling with a situation that maybe doesn't seem ideal, or doesn't seem like, it's as easy as it may be for others, or it's just different. Like, I don't like to say someone's is easier or harder, because I'm not going to say it's easier to be home with your kids all day, especially if you have little ones. Like, it's a lot. However, I really feel like it is the greatest blessing. So I am trusting God, and in the things that I don't understand or don't make sense, or I can't quite figure out, or I can't quite plan out the future, like, is this what we're going to do long term in terms of like me working full time and all of those things? I am just putting one foot in front of the other and trusting God, and knowing that I don't have to have it all figured out. But for right now, this is where we are. So if you are curious what our decision was, that is our decision. Definitely follow. I will be updating you guys for how things are going. And I'll definitely provide probably more updates on Instagram as usual with everything. Like, it's just, it's more immediate and all of those things. So if you're not following me already on Instagram, you can follow me at rooted_homeschool. Reach out, say hello. If you like this video, click the like button, comment below, subscribe if you have not already, click the notifications button, and hopefully I see you in my next video. And until then, stay rooted.